Hey there, and welcome to episode 76 of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast, where today I am talking with the inspiring ReeJade Richmond, a mompreneur who has turned some of life's toughest challenges, including lupus, dialysis, a premature birth, and raising a special needs child, into the foundation of a thriving, sustainable business. A community growth strategist and product development leader, ReeJade helps online coaches transform their ideas into profitable, flourishing membership communities. After experiencing life-threatening complications during pregnancy and navigating motherhood while undergoing dialysis, she knew that she needed a business model that worked for her, not one that drained her time and energy. And so she founded Memberships That Sell, which helps online coaches scale in a way that creates more freedom, more impact, and more revenue without the overwhelm. Join us as she opens up about transitioning from one-on-one consulting to a scalable membership model, the power of aligning business with your core values, and why setting boundaries is the ultimate key to success. We also dive into some of her favorite strategies for time management and sustainable growth too, so that you can build a business that truly supports your life. This is a truly inspiring episode, but I do want to warn you that some of the topics discussed, including life-threatening illnesses and premature birth, may be difficult for some listeners, but I want to encourage you to listen to this if you can. Want to work less while making a bigger impact? Let's pull back the curtain to designing a business that gives you the time, freedom, and success you deserve. Welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur, the podcast for mums with an online business who are ready to take back their time, home, business, and self so they can restore the balance and thrive, both at home and at work, without feeling like they have to choose between the two. I'm your host, Sarah Dew, life and biz coach for mompreneurs. I'm also a mum, stepmom, wife, introvert, breast cancer survivor, and your mentor for making a change for the better. I've learned how to go from surviving to thriving and unapologetically create a business I love and the life I want for me and my family without worrying about what other people think. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Because being an unapologetic mompreneur doesn't mean that we're selfish or that we don't care about others. It simply means that we are not afraid to show up as our true, authentic selves, to step into our purpose, do what we know is right for ourselves and the ones we love, and take the steps we need to take to make our dream life and business a reality. Join me each week where I'll be sharing all of my best tips and strategies, plus the occasional dose of tough but gentle love to help you feel empowered, motivated, and confident to take action so that you can become the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. So, are you ready to unapologetically create a business and life you love? Let's do this. Hey, ReeJade, welcome to the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, me too. I'm really looking forward to what we are going to be diving in today. And I know it's a topic that so many of us listening are really going to find useful and just encouraging and inspiring as well. And so before we dive in, do you want to just share a little bit about who you are, what you do, the journey to where you've got to now?
Yeah, so my name is ReeJade. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a dog mom. I have a daughter who's pretty much my height now. I'm 5 foot, so that says a lot. And my daughter, she's also special needs. So that's one of the reasons why creating my own business was important to me, to be there for her, to raise her. But it was not the traditional path. I did not necessarily want to go in business because I'm type A. Like I had my life set out for me. You know, you go to school, you get the job, you get the career, but unfortunately, life happened. I didn't know I have lupus. So I've always had health challenges. And so I always know that I had to always be mindful as an adult as I got older with managing job and stress. And unfortunately, as when we're young in our 20s, we just really take our health for granted, right? And for me, I kind of was playing Russian roulette with my health, my lupus, and unfortunately, my lupus flared so bad that I was pregnant and didn't even know. So I had my daughter at 24 weeks, 3 days. So she was born 1 pound, 3 ounces. And so in the midst of that, my career had transitioned to not having a job because I lost my job during that time frame because I'm in the state where it's considered at will, where you can get fired for any reason. And unfortunately, that was my situation. So that was kind of like the journey to business, because then I found out my daughter was in the NICU. Then I was having health complications. My both kidneys later failed. So that meant I had to start the journey of dialysis. So a traditional job was now out the question. And so really, I kind of was just thrown into business. It was never on the career path. I had, for the last 7 years, I had to wait until I got my kidney transplant. I did get a kidney transplant in February 2020. So I did get that. And so it was kind of like that reaffirmation of business. Do I get a job? Do I stay in business? And for me, it was always about, okay, let's not compromise your health again, and be just really focusing on my daughter. So it was, how some people are saying, like, they get out of college, or like, hey, or university, and they're like, hey, I want to build this business. For me, it was not that path. So for me, diving into business was not the dream. Some people say, like, I want to get freedom. That was never the dream path. And so that's really how I got started. In terms of what I do now, it was one of those things that was birthed after getting my kidney transplant, which is helping people build online communities through memberships.
Amazing. What an incredible journey that you've been through, and to just, have you battling with your health and going through all of that whilst having your baby as well. That is just wow. And I'm so glad and thankful for you that you've had your kidney transplant. That's incredible. So
Thank you.
amazing, amazing. So let's dive into some of that, because obviously everything you've been through, and realizing that that wasn't like the path that you originally went out to do, and you must have learned through all of that experience the importance of putting yourself first and everything that is going on, and obviously with having lupus, having to make sure that you're taking care of yourself as well. So how do you get started in building a business around you so that you know that you're taking care of you? And like you said, it wasn't the path you initially thought that you were going to be going down, and having to design and ask yourself, what is going to work for me, what is going to work for my family. How do you go about, because I know it's essential when we first start our businesses to want to go all in and spend all the hours under the sun and just completely burn ourselves out. How do you get started in actually, like building it and designing it so that it fits around you? And I know you mentioned before that you've got your core values and actually just identifying like your dream life. Do you want to just share how you get started in all of that?
Yes, I want to be very clear. Like most people, I did not start it with my core values in mind. I think at the time, so I started to put it in perspective. I started my first business, my journey into entrepreneurship in 2014, so over a decade ago. And when I started, that was the generation of you kind of alluded to it, where you got to work, you can't sleep, you got to post on all the platforms, you got to show up at all the events, you got to take all these meetings. It was kind of like you have to do overkill in order to sell, like really like the 100x times 100x just to see business results. And so even though I was going through dialysis at the time, I still was not adapting good health practices because I was just in survival mode, trying to make my business work during that time. Also, while going through dialysis, and then also taking care of a special needs child. And her disability is cerebral palsy. So the time was pretty intense. She wasn't walking, she wasn't talking, just to make sure that we can afford medical bills and things. So that was also another thing on my shoulders that I had to figure out. And so the initial stage, I'm very transparent, it was literally survival mode. It wasn't like this pretty red carpet. I don't have anyone in the family that came from business or had a business background. Also, none of my colleagues around me at the time, you're like, what, are you crazy? You need to go get a job, and you just really didn't have, a job did not fit the health lifestyle that I had, just because of all the appointments my daughter had, all the appointments I had at the doctors. Just a traditional 9 to 5 schedule would not have worked for me. And then if I even got like a part-time night job, I would be compromising something, and it just didn't make sense. So entrepreneurship was the only way. So with that being said, with having all these different doctor's appointments, with that being said, I was working late at night when my daughter was sleeping. So sometimes I'll be in the car working, not to disturb her, or working while I was in dialysis when I should be resting. So I did not have that balance. So when I did get my kidney, it felt like literally a second lease on life. And I did not want to compromise that. But prior to getting my kidney transplant in 2020, I had a one-on-one consulting business where I'm always like talking to the client, always interacting, always like go, 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 have to be all the things. And then I got my transplant. I was like, no, something needs to change. And I was like, okay, how can I shift my business model from a one-on-one business to a one-to-many? Because I'm like, okay, I can't lose my kidney, like, because I only got one now, and I did not want to compromise that. I did not want to go through dialysis again. And then also my daughter, she was really thriving and excelling, doing sign language now. She's walking now. And I just didn't want to miss any of those milestones because I was knee deep in the business. And I was trying to figure out, what does a one-to-many business model look like for me? And so, initially, I did not have those practices. So I didn't get them until I moved into a one-to-many business model where I was able to slow down, delegate, really figure out what is my dream lifestyle. And it really took me to start. So if we're talking about practical steps, after I went through 7 years of not doing it right to finally getting it right, it really took me saying like, okay, what's working is not working. I'm unhealthy. And as women, especially if we don't get enough sleep, we had cortisol. And so I was looking like I'm only 5 feet. So it's only so much weight I can carry. So when you don't get enough sleep, you can swell, you can carry water, your face can look puffy, you're not really regulating your nervous system, you're cranky, all different things was happening to my body because I was operating on 3 to 4 hours of sleep every day for 7 years. Like team no sleep, literally. And that's just not healthy. And so I committed to, number one, what are my core values? And it started to really like, okay, I need more time so I can do the things to put me first, because I wasn't. The first 7 years was survival mode of business. And so I was not putting myself first. I was focusing on everyone else. So when I pivoted, I was like, okay, no, I can't do this. If I'm not good, if I'm not alive in here, then I can't support anyone. So why not focus on me? And so my core values shifted 7 years into the business to put me first. So don't be like me, y'all, if you're listening. Don't do that. Start with your core values first and build a business around those core values. Don't worry about the money. When you build it around your core values, and I wish I did it this way the first time, but I didn't have anyone to teach me, right? And so starting with that first, like, okay, let's just say you map out all your time in your day and you're like, okay, I only have literally 8 hours a week to commit to my business. That's all that I have. You know what I mean? And figuring out like, okay, this is the only hours I have. How do I create a business that's effective within that time and start there? I really wish I started with the core values in mind. So really time for my health, time to really spend time with my family. That was important. And then also really just fun. Fun is important because for 7 years, I couldn't do anything because I was sick. And I was raising like my daughter, raising her with all her different challenges. So it was kind of like a hermit. I really wanted to enjoy life. And so really figuring out what does that look like. And for me, I was so many options to pick from a one-to-many business model, from group coaching to courses to retreats. It was so many models. But again, it was like, which one is the best for my core values? And a membership was the best, especially being an introvert, especially with like that deep empath desire to build deep relationship and connection. A membership was the best way for me at the time to do it.
Fantastic. I'm so glad that you shared that it wasn't just like you woke up one day and you had it all nailed and everything and you just started out like that, because we've all been through that. I've definitely been through that, and it's taken me, I've had my business 7 years. It's taken me literally like till like the last 12 18 months to figure out. And I went through burnout twice, thinking I had to do it all, and then realizing that actually, hang on a minute, I'm doing this business so that I have more time with my family, but I've got it all back to front. And I love that you shared about knowing that going first in with your core values and like not waiting. And that's definitely something that I've learned and that I share with my clients now as well, is what are your core values so that you can design everything around it. And the fact that you've picked a one-to-many model that matches not only your core values but like your personality as well, knowing that you're an empath and an introvert and what works best for you. Because I think sometimes there can be so much pressure when we go out there and we've got to do all the things and be everywhere and show up in ways that don't really fit who we are or don't really align with what we want. point. And then that's when there can be that disjoint. And I've definitely noticed that with my business since I've honed in this last 18 months into my core values, into what I want to do, what feels right for me. That's when everything has changed for me as well. So I'm so glad that you've shared that, and that's obviously the way of asking, because particularly if we're doing coaching and one-on-one services, whether it's service providing or working in coaching, there's that ceiling, isn't there? There's only so much that we can take on and only so much time that we have. And especially if we're limited with time, by switching to that one-to-many, that makes so much sense, because then we can help so many more people all in the same amount of time, can't we? So incredible.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback on a point you just made, like just really understanding your core values. Like I had to really understand, like, girl, you are an introvert. You cannot be at all these events with a bunch of people. And so like I was going to all these events and then I found myself instantly drained. And I'm like, what is going on? Because as introverts, we can be in there for a time, we can show up, but after a while our energy just go pew, and we need recovery days,
Yeah.
right? And I wasn't giving myself recovery days, and so I had to learn that, because I'm like, what is, like, because then it would be like these up and waves. Like it's like, okay, I show up and I'm like online, I'm public, I'm going to events, and then I'm hidden again because I'm just drained. And so I had to figure out what are the best events for me. And for me, it was those intimate events like retreats and masterminds versus these big old giant conferences that literally would take me out just because of my energetic energy. So when we're talking about health and business, also understanding you as a person, what's good for your energy, what's best for, even like, because that even goes to mental health, right? Not just outside of the physical, your mental health. And so I had to learn what's the best ways do I show up, even with the best hours a day that I work. Like it was like I had to go through this whole process, and literally feel like it does. Like I'll say this, I don't know anyone who gets it right when they first start out. I think 5 to 7 years is kind of the sweet spot where I know everyone's like, okay, let me rework this business thing so it's around my core values, because this ain't it. And so I think 5 to 7 years, if you are in that spot, that's okay, pivot, because now you have data to say, like, okay, when I was operating my business this way, this was not working. This impacted my health. This wasn't my best self. This is not the person I want to be, especially because when we operate like that, we are also not operating with business integrity either, right? Because we're not showing up authentically. And so it's like you're two different people on the front end of your business and then on the back end of the business, right? Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be that. And I found myself like that in the first 7 years of business. And so that was another huge reason why I needed to pivot my business, because I felt like I was not showing up authentically. It was kind of like a robot in a templated version of what a coach or someone else said. This is how you have to be in business. And also from a mental health perspective, that wasn't healthy either. And so I think that's also important to note, because I see it all the time, and that's how we get to burnout. That's how we get to, I think I've had like 3 different iterations of my business because of this, because we're not operating in integrity in our business. And that also goes to the health of your business and creating a business that fits your lifestyle. Is really, who are you? If you're an introvert, it's okay. You can build a business and be an introvert. I'm an introvert now, and I love what I do. I'm not online anymore. I delete it. Like I had over 50,000 followers and subscribers and stuff, like on email lists, on front end, on Instagram. I deleted them when I pivoted, because it was just like, this is too much. And this is not how I want to show up. Like, I don't want to show up for the algorithm. I want to show up and serve. And so that's why those core values are so important, because that dictates your marketing strategy too. And so I just wanted to say that, because I also always see coaches trying to push people to do these business strategies that's just not in alignment with who they are. And then we do it because we're paying the coach. We're like, well, they must know what they're talking about, right? And then we do these strategies, and then we compromise who we are, because then we have a mental health issue now, because we're like, okay, my business is not working, so I'm a failure, or my business is not needed, which that's not necessarily true. It's just you're showing up in the way that's inauthentic to who you truly are.
Incredible. That is such a good point too. And I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because it really does affects our health, and it affects the health of our business. And if we're not, and it's like this just one constant circle, isn't it? That if we're not being us in our business, we're not taking time for ourselves, then our business suffers as a result. And then we start beating ourselves up of, what are we not doing right? What are we doing wrong? Yes. I'm doing all these things, it's not working. And we're trying to pigeonhole ourselves and put ourselves in a box that isn't us. And then everybody out there, our subscribers, all of our people that are following us, they can see that. They can see that the energy isn't there. And when you hone it back in and take time for yourself and ask what is right for you in your business, and doing things that are in alignment with you, that is when things change, isn't it? That is when things start to blossom. That is when we start attracting our dream clients, and everybody flocks to us because the energy's changed as well. And our business starts to flourish, and then we are flourishing as a person as well. It's amazing how it is all linked. And my 2 rounds of burnout and then my rebrand to the Unapologetic Mompreneur from a simple and contented life last year has really changed that. And I've really seen that. And it's something that I now take my clients through all the time. With one of the modules in my program is Your Business Your Way. And it's actually looking at and ditching all of the needs and the shoulds and asking yourself how do you want to run your business? What services do you want to provide? What feels aligned? What feels right for you? And I can see that in what you've done and how, everything that you're doing and the way that you shine when you talk about it is that you've clearly done that. And I think when we first start out, we just want to dive in, don't we? And go straight for it and do all of the things and get it set up and think we need to do it all. But taking that time at the beginning, one, just looking at your values, but also then asking yourself, how do you want to run things? What fits right? What feels right is so important. I know you look at also about being clear on your capacity and what you can and cannot do. So do you have any tips about how to actually manage your day and be clear on how you work, and figuring out the number of hours, and what sort of tips do you have for that?
Yeah, I think I have one blessing. I went to a school, primary school, where they gave us planners. Okay. And so from a very young age, we had to plan out our day and schedules. And that kind of always stuck with me. So I've always been a planner girl. And so I've always been lucky with managing time, strict with deadlines. And that's translated to putting everything on a Google Calendar. If it's not there, it's not getting done. So I think having what I like to call time blocking is nothing new. It's not a new concept, but I like to time block my day, to the point of figuring out how do I best work, right? I am not a person, even though I'm on this podcast a little bit early. Typically, I'm not up around this time. I'm best at 10 a.m. Like my best day starts at 10 a.m. and I'm best working in 4-hour blocks. And this just takes time to figure out. It's just trial and error. Like make yourself a test experiment, legit. Because prior to that, as I said, I didn't have good business practice. I would work 12 to 18 hours a day. And for me, my sweet spot was 4 hours. 4 hours a day is my sweet spot with working, right? And so figuring out what are the key things you want to get done in your day. And it goes back to what you said, Sarah, about what is your dream life? What does that look like for you? For me, health was important. So in my day, I have to make sure my workouts get done. So when is the best time for me to work out? And I have to figure that out. So for me, working out in the morning is not the best time for me to work out just because I'm not mentally there. So for me, I had the best workouts in the afternoon. And so I work out in the afternoon. So I time block that in. So it's a non-negotiable. And then also because outside, like I said, I plan and put it on the Google Calendar, and you can make it fun, like color code your Google Calendars. Like I color code it with your branding colors. And then I also put alarms on my phone that go off, like just to keep me on track throughout the day. Because like I said, I am still, even though I'm 4 years post, having terrible business practices with my health, I still have to have reminders because it's like you can be in the middle working on something. You're like, I can get this done. But no, setting really hard constraints around your time. So number one, figuring out what are the key things you want to, what do you want your day to look like, right? For me, health was number one. So making sure I'm taking my supplements, so I've either had that on my calendar for take your supplements, drink your water. Like that's literally there because that's a priority. And it sounds like, so simple, but literally for me, if it's not on that calendar, it doesn't signal that is important for me to do. So putting it on your Google Calendar is important. So doing that and also figuring out the best time for me to work. So working in 4-hour blocks, so 10 to typically like 2 to 3 for me works, depending upon what it is. Now, with time block, and then also like in the day when my daughter's off from school, when she gets home, I'm not working because family is important to me, right? I'm not working on the weekends unless my daughter is gone somewhere, right? So just really prioritizing that, and I'm not working at night. So my nights are now my time, and so that gives me another layer of slowing down, and so really prioritizing self care in the evening for me. And so really figuring out what's important to you, and then also I said fun is one of my core values. So again, it goes back to your core values, and then you put those core values in your calendar. So for me, does having more time to do the things around my health. So that's on the calendar and on my alarms now. My family's incorporated in the calendar, right? And then now things for fun to do things that I love doing, like traveling, finding new hobbies. So then that's on the calendar. So having these fun little calendars outside of work is going to work for you, and stick to them. Like these are non-negotiables, and then everything else kind of falls in alignment, but you don't overwork or overextend yourself. So it's going to take a process. It's not something that's going to happen immediately. I think when I first started this, I kept overstepping my own boundaries with my calendar. Like I'll have something scheduled and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to extend the time out, or I'll cancel and I do it later. Like, no, like let these be these non-negotiables, because these are your values. And when you think about putting your values on the calendar, it kind of is like, okay, this is a non-negotiable, and if you're in a marriage, in a relationship, or you have other children, you communicate those boundaries like, hey, this is the time I'm doing this. Mommy is doing this. So, hey, don't bother me. These are the boundaries. And I think sometimes as moms, we kind of like put ourselves on the back burner, blast. And I think, again, if our cup is not overflowing, oftentimes people say your cup needs to be full first to help other people. I believe that it needs to overflow, because even if you're taking away from a full cup, then you're still leaving me with less than what I need. So we kind of need that overflow. And if we don't prioritize our core values first and put those in the calendar to do, then they're always going to be the last thing in mind. So really time blocking. So I use Google Calendar for business stuff. I personally use Asana. I love Asana. So there's different things. And then I also use my alarm just as a reinforcement. Like, for example, at 12 o'clock every day, I take a walk. Like it's either I'm walking, or I'm listening to an audible while I'm walking, or I'm reading. I'm doing something intentional at 12 p.m. every day, like Monday through Sunday. And so that is just a way for me to slow down, reset my nervous system. And so it's really just figuring out, it's just a play thing, like figuring out different things. And figuring out what other people are doing to kind of figure out what works for you. Take what you need, throw the rest away is my philosophy. Because what works for me may not work for you, but that's the easiest way for me to time block. So I started with putting just my core values on the calendar: time, revenue, and impact. The revenue time, of course, is the business, like money generating activities. So that means I'm not on social media posting, because for me, that's not really a revenue generating activity, right? And so that's kind of like how I switched from always operating in the business and cutting down a huge amount of hours to moving into this one-to-many business model through memberships, because now I'm focusing on what's a revenue generating activity. And for me, unfortunately, it's something I just love doing. And it's really having conversations with people and building relationships, which feels good to me as an introvert, but also is in a limited capacity, because as an introvert, I only have so much energy to do it as well, right?
Amazing. I love all of that so, so much. And I love that you've taken the time blocking, and I time block my day too, but the fact that you're leading with your values of what matters and make sure that you're building them in, because you're so right. If we don't make them a priority, they don't happen. And so that's when we start to feel it cooking in again, and our mental health suffering and all of that. So I love that you are doing that, and that you're even like the 12 o'clock every day is that non-negotiable, that you're doing something for you and having it in there, because I know that that's something that a lot of my listeners and that my clients struggle with, is that they're wanting to make the time for themselves, but they feel guilty about doing it, and that they're then neglecting all of the other things that we are supposed to be doing by not having, because we're taking time for ourselves. So I love that you mentioned that you make sure that it is in there, and adding those reminders to your phone as a way of like enforcing those and helping you protect your boundaries, because it is so tempting to think, oh, I'll just finish this project, I'll just do one more email, oh, I'll do my walk later instead of right now. To have those reminders and that check in with yourself is so important, and I love that you do that. I may have to borrow that one. I think that is incredible. That's so, so good. And I love that you mentioned then about leveraging your time as well, going into the one-to-many and knowing what works and what lifts you up and lights you up, and having that return on investment of time and money by actually it builds you up and lifts you up by connecting and talking with people. So then bringing that into your business as a model for your business by leveraging your time and having a membership is a really great way of doing it. So do you want to share a bit more about how you go away and how you found that helping you and how you do that, and so that you can maximize your time and impact by having a membership community, how that's been game changing for you?
Yeah, so it's been changing because it really aligns with my personality. Like I am, I think before when I had the one-on-one consulting, it was kind of like a numbers game. You got to get so many people in, you got to have all these conversations just to have a return on investment, right? And now that's not the conversation anymore. It's not butts and seats or X amount of sales. It's now like, how many people can I serve now? And the conversation becomes different. It feels different. It feels better. And so memberships for me is about transformation. It's about deep connection with people. It's about intimacy. And so those are some of the things I value. I value my relationships, and I value the people that I connect with and learn from, and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's a privilege. And so to be able to people to say yes to you, to pour into them, or to even make a financial commitment. So a membership model kind of really changed my perspective on business in terms of really that intimacy component, and moving into intimacy for memberships. It allowed me to create programming for that. And so when my membership, I only let so many people in. So it's not a numbers game. It's not these $47 memberships, unlimited, 100 people in, 1,000 people in, and you don't know anybody in the membership. That was something important to me, to know the people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have my business as a revolving door. So that one of the ways the one-to-many model helped me do that was, one of my core values is just really impact. Time, revenue, and impact. So impact means building relationships intentionally. 1 second. So with building those intentional relationships, memberships help me do it. So like even from the first iteration of our membership in 2020, I still have relationships with every single member. Like to this day, some are still in the program, some are not, but they still refer people, and that's just amazing. So that is just really the core thing about the one-to-many, is the intimacy. Also, the time aspect of it changed the trajectory. So the time, I mean, it's still business stuff, right? But I didn't need so many team members now, because now I'm valuing intimacy. I don't have as many clients, and then I'm also more intentional at how I show up. So now I'm showing up in a more authentic way, and not this polished version now, right? I think before it was like I could not share, like, hey, I'm having a bad day. So we need to cancel, or like something tragic happened in the family or whatever's happening. And then there wouldn't be any grace. Because I think before in business, it's kind of like you truck it along, you just deal with it. I remember so there was an incident, and this is one of the reasons why I knew something had to change. I remember it was maybe, and this is after I had pivoted into a membership model, and I was still finding my footing on developing out the program. So I want to say it was a 1 year post us jumping into memberships. And I had a miscarriage, and I had to be at a meeting. And like I literally went to the ER, and they told me I was miscarrying, and they said I was going to continue miscarrying throughout the day. And at that time, I'm like, okay, well, I have this meeting and stuff like that. I still have to show up for the meeting. I should have canceled the meeting. I didn't. I still show up for the meeting. Everything was fine, but I was in excruciating pain. Like I was literally delivering everything out of my body, expelling everything in my body while I was having this meeting, standing up. And then when I got to my car, like everything just kind of like gushed out. I bled through my clothes. I called one of my best friends. I was just crying, and I said, I'm no longer, like, this is like one of the things that really enforced the boundary for me. I'm no longer compromising me and how I show up. Like things will have to get canceled. And so I say that I shared that story. I know it was kind of TMI, but I wanted to share that how extreme we compromise ourselves for the sake of business or in the sake of other people. because the membership model, I don't have to compromise. It's because we built this intimacy. Everyone is not just about business, it's about we're building core values, we're being vulnerable, we're sharing those things. And I think sometimes in a traditional one-on-one setting in consulting and coaching, it's not there because it's kind of like everyone's like, I have this, like, I'm perfect, I got things together. It's not really that vulnerability space. When it comes to one-on-one coaching, that I haven't really seen that real authentic vulnerability unless it's guys in the premise of like a mastermind or intimate retreat. But it's very rare that I come across like a really good one-on-one consulting program or coach that I've seen in the marketplace now. I mean, I see them coming now, but previously I didn't see those. And so membership allows for that intimacy and vulnerability and authenticity. And so that's some of the things, that intimacy, just really being myself, sharing with my members, and allowing them to do the same, giving them permission, because you are a human operating in business, and life is going to happen to you in business. It just is good, bad, and different. And the thing is, what are you going to do? Are you going to compromise your boundaries? Are you going to reinforce them? And unfortunately, I have compromised my boundaries and core values on so many occasions. And so a membership kind of helps me reinforce who I am and how I best show up in the world. And so that's one of the reasons why I just love it. And then I also get to witness true transformation. Like, I don't have to wonder, like, from when people used to come to me and consult, yes, they would write a good review and stuff. But if sometimes I would also wonder, like, oh, how are they doing? Did they, really transform? Are they using the strategy I gave them? In the membership, I can see that in real time, and they feel safe to come back like, hey, this is working, but I need some support here. Do you mind giving me some support? They're not afraid to ask, you know what I mean? So it's like I get to also be their advocates on their journey as well. And so that's also just a beautiful thing to witness too.
Fantastic. Firstly, thank you for sharing that story, and I'm very sorry for your loss that you went through all of that. But yeah, it's just incredible it is just amazing how we do that, don't we? We just compromise our own boundaries, and we think that we have to just be perfect all the time and show up and keep going regardless of what's going on in the background, because we all have things that are going on.
Yes.
And I love that having that membership space has enabled you to give yourself that grace and actually just and not worry about having to be perfect and keep going and be able to see the transformations. It's so much more intimate, isn't it? Like you say, and you can connect on a much deeper level. So if we've got anybody listening that is thinking, wow, I'm really curious about this, I'm thinking about starting maybe having a membership site, however it would look like for them. Have you got any sort of like tips or strategies to get started on doing it?
Yeah, I think also it goes back to your core values. Do you have the time? Because I mean, membership does take time, right?
Yeah.
And then also examining, who are you? Because I mean, for us introverts, membership community can be a lot, right? So I think really evaluating your time capacity, number one, what is the goal? Like, why do you want to do a membership? I think there's two different ways you can do a membership. You can have a membership as a complement to your one-on-one services, or you can kind of be like me, it's a full business model. So I think it just depends on your goals, number one, and your values. So it goes back to those things. What's most important to you right now? And what are you hoping to achieve? So when I'm talking to coaches and consultants, when they come to me often to see if they're ready, I say is really, do you have a framework? And what I mean by a framework, do you have a framework in which you walk people through in your coaching or your consulting? Because if you don't have a framework and you don't know how you get people, like I like to say, transformation, a membership is not going to work, because I teach memberships from the standpoint of transformation. And that's what we do in the communities. And so it's starting with, do you have the capacity? Does the membership really fit your personality? Because if you're not a people person, you probably don't want to start a membership, because I teach it from the standpoint of intimacy and not just a program you dump a bunch of content in and you got recurring revenue. I don't teach it from that standpoint. I really teach it from the standpoint of true community building. So really figuring out, is that a best fit for you? Because that may not, a membership may not be the best fit. Of course, may be a best fit, or group coaching may be a best fit, right? So I think just really evaluating who you are, your core values and energy, and then also evaluating, do you have a framework that really walks people through transformation? I think one of the things I did right in my business, that I did have a framework that actually worked and I knew it. It's just now I had repurposed it into a community model with taking people on a journey. So if people are going to join your membership and you're thinking of one, can you take people through a journey? Because if you can't take people through a journey, that's how they lose engagement. That's how they, they disappear. That's how they cancel their subscriptions because there's nothing going on to take them through that transformation. So really having a framework that does that is important. And then also figuring out what is that expectation transformation, because when you're shifting from a one-on-one model to a community model, what's that transformation you're expecting? For me was really walking people, and it still is through the journey I went through, to help them get more time, revenue, and impact. That's the transformation that we're helping people get through a membership community model. And so figuring out what is that transformation that you give people. So those are the really basic things to ask yourself first. If you don't have a solidified framework, and here's the key to know if you have a solidified framework: do you have clients? Are they paying you? Are you getting results? And if you, because some people are just so talented, I find this, that they never thought about their body of work as a framework. Like they're like, oh no, I didn't never think that step one of what I do was X, or they never thought about it in those terms of what's the next step of everyone's transformation, because they're just so good at what they do. And most coaches are. They're just really good at guiding people to results, but they're not really clear on like, oh darn, what was that step that I was actually walking them through to get that that milestone? And so I think really sitting with your framework is where people, I find, that comes to me when they want to consider if they're ready. That's the missing link. They're not clear on their framework and how they actually get people results. They just know like, hey, people pay me, I got them results, I have great reviews and testimonials, but I'm not really clear on what my blueprint is.
Amazing. That is super helpful. Thank you so much. And I know that you've got a 5-day challenge, haven't you, about getting started with a membership. So we'll make sure that the link for it is in the show notes. But do you want to just share quickly, briefly, so if people are curious about getting started, what that involves and where to go and where they can find it?
Yeah, so we created a 5-day challenge, and it really spun from a lot of kind of like what I was just talking about, people asking me questions like, okay, I want to see if I'm ready. And this is the best way to do it. Like, I created a challenge, it's completely free, and it just walks you through over 5 days, really like the different key essential steps in our framework to kind of see, do you have these things in place? What does it feel like for you? Because if it feels overwhelming right now, then it means we may not have all the things in order in our coaching, like our one-on-one business first, to move to the one-to-many model. So you really need to have a solidified one-on-one business model before jumping into a one-to-many. And the challenge really helps you uncover that. It really kind of helps you get a little taste on what it would be like to launch, like kind of soft launch your membership community. And if you do it, the challenge will help you get your first 25 members if you are committed to the challenge over the course of 5 days. And so it's on our website, membershipsthatsell.com/challenge.
Fantastic. That sounds amazing. I'll make sure that that is in the show notes. If anybody listening or watching on the YouTube channel is interested in doing that, definitely go and check that out. And before we just wrap up and you share where everybody else can find you, and do you want to, I always have one question that I like to ask all of everybody who comes onto the show. And that is, what does being an unapologetic mompreneur mean to you? And how are you showing up unapologetically every day, both as a mom and as the boss of your business?
Ooh, that's such a loaded question. Like, oh my gosh, here for hours. Okay. In short version, I think being an unapologetic mom is just really, it's going to sound harsh, like really not caring what other people's expectations are for me. I think as moms and women, sometimes we are people pleasers naturally. And I think for so many years in my life, I have been a people pleaser, and it compromised my health and my values and how I want to show up best in the world. And so not really caring what people think, not really caring that my life doesn't fit into this pretty packaged box with the bow on top. I'm excited, and I love my messy ripple up and down life. It has taught me an amazing lessons. And so just I'm really unapologetic about that. For so many years I was embarrassed about, like, I didn't have this perfect life, right? I didn't show up perfectly. I'm not a perfect mom, I'm not a perfect business owner, I'm not a perfect friend, etc. And I'm just really unapologetic about, not people pleasing anymore, and just being who I am and showing up good, bad, and different, like all of me, and understanding that is what makes me, me, and how I show up in the world.
Amazing. I love that so much. I love it. And the fact that just not being apologetic about not worrying about people's expectations, because that can be so tough sometimes, especially if we are people pleasers. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being on the show. It has been absolutely amazing conversation. I've loved every minute of it. And I know that everybody listening is definitely going to want to go and check you out. So do you want to just share your links and everything? Obviously, we'll make sure that they're all in the show notes. But yeah, just briefly share where people can find and connect with you.
Yeah, if you just connect with me at ReeJade Richmond on any platform, primarily these days I'm on Threads. So you can find me on Threads. So there, if you want to, more personal, intimate conversation, you can slide in my DM on Instagram. If you're also on LinkedIn, I don't mind having conversations on LinkedIn. I'm there too these days. So, and then on Facebook, I'm at ReeJade Richmond too. So literally all the platforms, I'm at ReeJade Richmond.
Fantastic. We will make sure that all of those are in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been amazing. That's it for today's episode. Thank you for listening and watching, and look forward to chatting with you in the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you so much for joining me for another installment of the Unapologetic Mompreneur podcast. If you like what you heard, be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I would love for you to leave me a rating and a review so that other mompreneurs can find this podcast too. Here's to unapologetically becoming the mum, wife, biz owner, and woman you know you are meant and deserve to be. I can't wait to chat with you in the next episode. Bye for now.